Australia is a vast and varied continent whose natural regions depend on the rainfall brought by the prevailing winds. A large area extending from far western Queensland and New South Wales to the west coast of Western Australia does not benefit from the rain-bearing winds. It is a region of scanty rainfall and high temperatures and could be described generally as arid country with very few people. In this arid low rainfall region of Australia, the discovery of rich mineral ores has heralded spectacular changes. Where once scattered cattle roamed red, rocky hills and grazed between green clumps of spinifex, today men and machines are winning new wealth for the nation. Busy towns are rising, where once the lonely prospector or passing drover lit his evening fire. In 1923, a bushman, John Campbell Miles, on his way to the Territory, found traces of lead on a barren hill 600 miles inland from Townsville. Today, Mount Isa, on the Leichhardt River, is the largest underground mine in Australia. Silver, lead, zinc ore and copper ore are found here, not together, but in adjacent ore bodies, and are mined, milled and smelted separately, but by similar methods. The miners reach the lower levels, some of which are more than 2,000 feet underground, by means of the man and supply shaft. These huge double-decker cages carry 80 men at a time. Each mine level is ventilated by air, refrigerated in summer, forced down a shaft at the southern end of the current working by a pressure fan. The stale air is drawn out through an exhaust shaft near the northern end. The first crushing takes place underground, where the rocks are reduced to under 6 inches in diameter. The ore is then hauled to the surface through number 2 ore shaft in skips, each carrying 12 tons. The ore is delivered by conveyor belt to the crude ore bins, which hold up to 3,500 tons. From the storage bins, the crude ore goes by conveyor belt to the crushing plant to be further reduced in size. It is then transferred to the rod and ball mills to be ground to the fineness of flour. The finely ground ore is concentrated by a flotation process. The resulting concentrates, whether copper, lead or zinc, are then thickened in huge tanks. Eventually, the zinc concentrates are railed to Townsville to be shipped to smelting plants overseas. The lead concentrates go to the lead smelter for treatment. The lead bullion is cast into 1-ton blocks, which are shipped to London for further refining. The copper concentrates are treated at the copper smelter. Here, copper matte containing 45% copper pours from the furnace into the trough before going to the converters for further refining. In the converter section, the copper is further purified until at last blister copper, now 98% pure, remains. Finally, it is poured into molds and cast into 1-ton blocks. These are later railed to Townsville to be further refined at the company's new electrolytic refineries. Power for the mine, the surface workings and the community of Mount Isa is generated at the new Mica Creek Power Station. This is the first open power station to be built in Australia. Through its distribution network flow 60 megawatts of power. Water for this huge powerhouse, for the mine and for domestic use, comes from two reservoirs. This new picturesque Leichhardt River Dam, 12 miles downstream from Mount Isa, has a storage capacity of over 17,000 million gallons. Mount Isa's flourishing gardens, green lawns and trees are testimony to the fact that there's been no water restriction in recent years. Here are some of the beautiful homes and gardens of the leading mine executives. With the growth of the mine, a general revolution in housing has come about. The rough and ready cottages of the early miners were followed by tent houses, and today the mine finances a cooperative housing scheme. Architect-designed homes may be rented cheaply or bought on very small deposits and very low interest rates. Over on the mine lease, new houses are being built to keep pace with the expansion program. The company has sponsored and helped finance numerous social and sporting amenities. The modern Olympic-sized swimming pool in Cruchnit Park is the equal of any in Australia. The 5 bowling greens, so popular with both men and women, are resplendent with flowering shrubs, bougainvillea and poinsettia. Numerous tennis courts are just another of the various sporting facilities offered the Mount Isa people. The expansion program which began for Mount Isa in 1953 is still underway. Here is the new administrative block, where the planning and overall design take place. Here, the new 500-foot copper smelter stack, which towers 200 feet above the old one. Everywhere there are vigorous signs that Queensland's largest private industrial concern is fast becoming one of the largest operations of its kind in the world. Some 42 miles southeast of Mount Isa, among the rugged ancient hills, lies the rich uranium mine of Mary Kathleen. It was only in 1954 that the prospector McConaughey found traces of uranium here. Today, the huge open cut rises terrace by terrace on 12 levels into the face of the nearby hill. Ore from the open cut is taken to the plant below. Here it passes through the crushing mill and then goes to the treatment plant. The sulfuric acid needed in the processing is made from the imported crude sulfur at the company's own sulfuric acid plant. After the final treatment, the uranium precipitate is fed onto a stainless steel conveyor, which passes through the drying plant. When it is dry, it becomes uranium oxide and is ready for packing and export. 4 miles from the mine is the quiet little township which houses 1,000 people. This was built by and is owned by the company. The houses of Mary Kathleen are surrounded by tall, shady trees, green lawns and lovely gardens. Among other amenities, the company has provided a modern school and a beautiful swimming pool. There is also a splendid market garden which produces an abundance of fresh food. The water supply for Mary Kathleen comes from the beautiful Lake Corella, a huge storage dam built by the company across the Corella River, 8 miles away. From these mining towns of Mary Kathleen and Mount Isa in the far northwest of Queensland, The Barkly Highway takes us across the cattle country of the Barkly tableland, 450 miles west, to the mining township of Tennant Creek in the centre of the Northern Territory. Tennant Creek has grown up around the local mineral deposits. Gold comes from the North Australia Development Mine, while Pico, which started out as a gold mine, has over the past few years developed into a rich and flourishing copper mine. The shaft of the old gold mine is now the ventilating shaft for the copper mine. The copper is obtained from this beautiful peacock ore, which is brought from the underground workings almost 1,000 feet in depth. The ore is brought via the mine shaft to the surface crushers. At Pico, all crushing is done on the surface. From the crushing plant, the ore passes to the ball mill, where it is reduced to powder. The finely ground ore is concentrated by a flotation process, and the resulting concentrates are thickened in a huge tank. The concentrates are eventually taken through a filter dryer, where 90% of the liquid is removed. The final product is copper concentrate, containing about 27% copper and a small quantity of gold. The copper concentrates are taken from the filter dryer to be dumped into stockpiles and then bagged. The bagged copper concentrate is finally sent by road to Alice Springs, and thence by rail to the copper smelters at Port Pirie in South Australia. In direct contrast to the barren spinifex and mulga country surrounding Pico is the lush tropical vegetation around the township of Bachelor, nearly 600 miles further north and only 70 miles south of Darwin. This modern and beautiful township of Bachelor grew up to house the workers of the Rum Jungle uranium mine. Rum Jungle was the first valuable uranium deposit discovered in Australia, 5 years before Mary Kathleen. For 4.5 years, it was worked as an open cut mine. This 200-foot hole is the remains of one of them. The other, the big hole, now lies beneath this great lake, 1,000 feet deep. As the uranium deposits were exhausted and the treatment plant was short of water, the nearby river was diverted into the open cut to provide an ample water supply. The ore from these open cuts has been stockpiled, and on removal from the stockpile, it follows the same procedure as at Mary Kathleen. It goes through the crushing mill and then through all the numerous processes of the treatment plant before finally emerging as uranium oxide. From Rum Jungle, let us move across to the northwest of Western Australia, where the arid desert lands come down to the sea. Mineral deposits in these outback areas have brought people and helped develop ports, like those at Port Hedland and Roebourne. The manganese ore from Mount Cook or Ragged Hills is brought over 200 miles by road and stockpiled in these heaps at Port Hedland awaiting shipment. Manganese is used in the steel industry to toughen and harden steel. The harbour facilities at Port Hedland have been improved to handle these large exports of manganese. Through Port Hedland, too, pass the wool and sheep from the surrounding stations. This blue asbestos fibre is shipped through Roebourne and its port of Point Sampson to Singapore. The asbestos is used in the manufacture of heat-resistant and fireproof materials. It is brought nearly 200 miles by road from the only blue asbestos mine in Australia, Wittenoom Gorge in the Hamersley Ranges south of Roeburn. The eastern goldfields of Western Australia have brought people and wealth to an arid, empty land. The Golden Mile, approximately 1 mile square, is considered to be the richest gold mining area in the world. At present, it is being worked by 9 of the largest producing companies in the state. The goldfields here are in rocks that are among the oldest in the world. Since the discovery of gold in this area, the fields have produced gold to the value of more than 200 million pounds. The gold mining industry is centred around Boulder, whilst Kalgoorlie provides the commercial services to the district. Outside the Kalgoorlie Town Hall stands the statue of Paddy Hannon, who discovered gold here in 1893. The old pioneer is depicted holding his water bag, on which is mounted a drinking fountain. In the story of Australia, the discovery of minerals has always led to an influx of people and the development of otherwise inhospitable areas. Today, we have seen just a few of the places where this has happened. Let us look at them again. Silver, lead, zinc and copper at Mount Isa. Uranium at Mary Kathleen. Copper and gold at Tennant Creek. Uranium at Rum Jungle. Manganese at Mount Cook or Ragged Hills. Blue asbestos at Wittenoom Gorge. And gold at the Golden Mile. Always the mineral wealth of this ancient land has lured men from their familiar ways, lured them to launch new ventures and seek new riches in these mines of the Outback.